Many people wonder about differentiated instruction with a pacing guide, but also trying to be innovative and creative in the classroom. Is the pacing guide the death of creativity in the classroom, especially when you have all these diverse learners? And I'd like to remind you that just because you can't imagine how to do a particular principle doesn't mean you drop that principle. You don't want to be one of those people who says, I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to do it. A lot of people think differentiation is a really good idea, but they say, but I can't do it in my classroom, or my school doesn't allow it. And I like to remind you that even the schools in the most dire situation can do differentiated instruction. So you need to take a look at what do I need to make it happen. Now we have pacing mandates versus pacing guides. You know the mandate, week 5, day 3, everybody's on page 36. Well, that goes against everything we know in human psychology and the way the mind best learns. It's okay to have a sequence. It really is okay to have a pacing guide. But do you retain a little bit of autonomy to adjust things, go to page 136 or page 36, depending on the needs of the child? That's relevant. I should be allowed to change the novel, for example, without suffering from the stare of death from the department chair or the team leader. Because I realize this other novel in the same genre on which we could hook the same learning can work just as well, in fact, better with a particular group of students. So, do I have an educational justification, a pedagogical rationale, not just whimsy or I'm not in the mood or I never really understood that author? Yeah, I can do that. But I really have to analyze the situation and see that I'm responsive to specific student needs. I'd like to suggest that you can't do differentiated instruction without being creative, without being innovative. A child is failing to thrive. He's not learning something. So I come up with a different analogy. Maybe I come up with a fourth example. The child's really ready to move above and beyond. So how do I extend it into another area? Oh, that's cool. How do I break something down into smaller pieces, let the child play with those, and then rebuild it together? So there's analysis, there's synthesis, there's divergent thinking, there's convergent thinking. You can be inductive and deductive at the exact same time as you work with the children in any particular content area. But if you lack that personal creativity, that innovation, that's going to be a struggle. You're going to say, I've got 1 or 2 ways to teach this thing, and there's no other way to do it. And I would just like to say, Boulder Dash. There's plenty of other ways to teach this stuff. You walk into a classroom and you have basically one homework assignment. Great. Here's the one homework assignment the whole class is going to do. But this one assignment won't work. Can you, on the spur of the moment, cultivate another idea? Some other way to really explore that is actually more meaningful based on what you know about the students. Yeah. We get to know lots of things about students, but we don't pigeonhole. For example, I find somebody's really into basketball. Do I only use basketball analogies? No. I can use fishing analogies. I can use no analogies whatsoever. Somebody's really into bodily kinesthetic learning and a multiple intelligence proclivity. That's great, but I don't think I have to put motion into every single part of every single lesson. He can do interpersonal, intrapersonal, and many of the other multiple intelligence proclivities. We want to build up and make that well-rounded. You can't do that without cultivating a sense of creativity. One of the things we've learned in creativity is it's really a sequence of combination and recombination. So, I'm looking at combining these ideas that are very, very familiar, but I see them a little bit differently. For some reason, I'm thinking about discipline in my class and miniature golf. Or maybe it's discipline in my class and architecture. Maybe it's something else, discipline in medicine, discipline in art, I don't know. But the idea of combining and recombining, that's where you get your creative insight. Not necessarily have some strike or lightning bolt of insight and innovation. But it also takes practice. You can't just suddenly turn on, turn off. So one of the cool things I recommend you do in your department meetings or your team meetings is sit down and say, what are 12 ways to teach this one thing we all have to teach? And what if it doesn't work? Well, let's brainstorm 4 or 5 different ideas on that. I think you would go a long way in differentiation, responding to students' needs by cultivating your own sense of creativity. And you know what? Pacing guides are great, but wouldn't it be a little bit arrogant to imagine that a group of teachers sitting in a library or a conference room someplace over the summer could actually plan for every classroom reality? Certainly there are going to be some different things from time to time. Students of different frames of reference, students with different backgrounds, different learning challenges or successes, and they're ready to move on. Absent some kind of flexible application of the pacing guide, not pacing mandate, you're not going to be very effective in the classroom. Well, I don't think you can do that that effectiveness without having that creative skill set. Because if you're creative, you can gather your own solutions. You don't have to rely or blame circumstance when a student fails to thrive. You can bring these resources to bear and figure it out right there and then. So you might want to get third grade teachers to help give advice to fifth grade, or science teachers to sit in with PE teachers or music teachers to give some kind of divergent, maybe objective point of view. They know about teaching and learning, but they can employ this one thing to apply. How does that work? So if you're struggling with a math student's issue, make sure to invite somebody from the English department, the art department to come in and sit in and kind of hear and kind of give some feedback on that. And then also understand that if you're not feeling creative yourself, that's okay. You don't have to be Joe and Jane creative, innovative to do it, but practicing creativity, and there's lots of ways to do that, will enable you to actually be creative in the spur of the moment, real time, in the classroom when it's needed. I've got a kid who's failing to learn. I've got these really cool ways to make him learn or to get him to learn, facilitate his own discovery, an analogy, or I've got these ways to extend something for the kid who needs something above and beyond. If you're into PLCs, those are going to be two of the biggest questions in PLCs. What do I do when they don't learn, and what do I do when they already know it and we need to do something else? It's your creativity that allows you to differentiate even in a world totally focused on pacing guides.